brothers and sisters, and thank you so much for joining us here at Remnant House, the home of the strong and the very courageous. And actually, I wanted to do this outside, but as you can see on your screen, we've got rain inbound, and we continue to thank Abba for sending the rain, for blessing us with abundant rain in a region where there should not be any, and according to their records, this is just this isn't supposed to happen, and yet here it is, and we're so grateful. And thank you to all of you who continue to pray and stand in faith with this house. We are certainly honored to walk with you, and that's what we do. We walk together. Amen. Peter is very clear that even those who are in fact called to be shepherds are called to be examples onto the flock. So our responsibility is always to try and be a very good example, and yet nevertheless never forgetting that we do not lord over the heritage of Elohim. Amen. And so we're here to speak with you, encourage you, love you, minister what we know, what he gives us to say to you. Amen. And today is a topic that he has had actually in my spirit for some time. There's been some stirring going on in the background, if you will, concerning this matter. And today we're going to be talking about uncovering demonic doorways, and in anticipation for the fall feasts, which, you can hear the thunder, the fall feasts which are coming. And this is very special to us in our house. So those of you that have been with us for a little while will know why, but for those that are new, this coming fall feast period marks a 7-year anniversary, if you will, or the completion of a Shabuah, from when we blew the horn in obedience to Yahuwah's command on the Mount of Olives, on the very day, at the very moment that the Pope was speaking in Congress. So while he's talking, at the split screen that, right, and at that exact moment, the shofar is being blown on the Mount of Olives, right, by a consecrated vessel set apart for that purpose. So just look at that from a spiritual standpoint, and you can then understand what's been going on in your world ever since, because that was orchestrated by the Ruach to call an end to what was ruling your world. And our petition was for the Jubilee. So we continue to stand in faith for him to blow their doors open and to free all of you of all the things that they have unlawfully done to bind you up. And now today, as we anticipated, or as we move up toward the fall feast, what he has spoken and what is now being confirmed is that this is going to be extremely dangerous time period in terms of what we're going to see. And what he showed me is that there will be an explosion of demonic activity coming this next season. And so we obviously want to be prepared for that. And I believe that there's going to be a need for some crash courses in, crash course is probably the wrong word, but just, a recovery, if you will, or review of deliverance ministry, and understanding the demonic doors, the Luciferian doors, the satanic doorways that we can sometimes intentionally, sometimes very unintentionally open up in lives. And so we need to be very careful about some of this. And so again, I can't speak for every other house. My responsibility is for Remnant House and for those that he has placed in our fold, and those that are friends of this ministry and who benefit and are blessed by it. And we certainly welcome you. We're not sharing any of our broadcasts actually for debates or for any kind of strife or conflict with anyone. And so if you find any of this material offensive, it may indicate that there's something that has been compromised. I know there are many people today who have taken lightly the demonic doorways that the enemy uses. Now, I've been doing this for 27 years, so I'm not new to deliverance ministry. This was actually quite the hallmark of the very early parts of my ministry, in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, where I encountered very strong and very deeply seated demonic attachments that were not easy to dislodge. And he had to teach me many lessons about how the demonic get in, how they hold their position, and the ways in which they can be extricated. And saints, it's not as light a matter as you may think. And so those that think it's no big deal, and I'm just going to go forward over here and they're going to pray for me and it's all going to be great, may find that it's not that simple. And the reason for that is something that Mashiach told us. He told us that when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, when it is cast out of a man, it goeth into waterless and dry places, and it's seeking rest, it finds none. Okay, so any spirits that were looking to us as being their waterless, dry place, he took care of that with rain. We're not your waterless, dry places anymore, right? And so they have to move on, and he kicked them out of here. But you got to understand that the waterless, dry places are places of death, right? So when Mashiach went out into the wilderness, for example, he went out to the devil's like home court, his playing field, and rebuked them. Amen. And so they go out to waterless, dry places and they seek rest. Finding none, they return to the very same vessel that they departed from. Finding that this vessel hasn't learned anything. In other words, you kick the devil out, but the vessel has not figured out how the demon got in. He goes and gets 7 worse than himself. And the last state of the man is worse than the first. Mashiach said that. We have seen that with our own eyes, how that people can get demons cast out of them and then end up worse, because what the foundations of these things, how they got in, was not cleaned up, was not removed. And you have to have the truth, the ruach of truth, to come in order to fill that vessel, so that the ruachs of error, which is what all these are, have no place. Amen. And so you have to really be committed to the truth, by the way. Every demonic destruction is a truth encounter. I'm going to say that again. Okay? Every demonic destruction is a truth encounter. They are liars. They speak lies. They love exaggeration. They love to lie. They lie to make their point. And so you need to be very careful when dealing with demonic spirits and people that are under the influence of demonic spirits. Now, did you know that a person can welcome an evil spirit into their soul or into their world even without knowing it? So a lot of things people do, they are unintentionally doing out of ignorance, and my people perish for lack of knowledge. And so be careful with that. It's not an uncommon thing for people to actually welcome unclean spirits without having to do anything from on the outside. Sometimes it's just your thoughts. And for this reason, we are commanded to take our thoughts even captive. And so that is in 1 Corinthians, and we are commanded to cast down every thought and imagination which exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim. So we are to pursue the knowledge of Elohim over everything else. And that's the same thing Messiah said. He said, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these, seek first the kingdom of Yahuwah and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, right? And so this is what happens is the enemy, working through an unclean spirit, will approach a person at a time of need in their life, and that gets that person to agree with demonic bait. And so you have to be really, really careful with the things that you allow into your world. And just today, to confirm this message and to awaken me on certain things, we had an incident here on the property where a king snake got in amongst our chicks and killed 3 of them. So ate 3 of the chicks and was about to eat the 4th when it was discovered. Would have wiped out all the baby chicks. Now what's interesting, I don't know the actual breed of these baby chicks, but when they grow up, they're actually snake killers. That's why Mama bought them, right? So it's interesting that the snake came for the snake killers, and its head got chopped off. And of course, we have no patience for snakes. And so one of the things I began to meditate on this, because there's no coincidences in the kingdom. Nothing's coincidental. So of course I go before Yahuwah and I'm like, what is this? What am I seeing? And he begins to show me that our adversary is the snake, who comes in for the babies and will try to take them who are ignorant of the devices of the wicked one and take them. And so I don't care how old you are physically. You might be 50 years old. Maybe you're a baby when it comes to some of this information. It takes humility, but you have to do that. You have to say, hey, in this area, I don't know anything. Let me learn a little, you know. Because those who think that they cannot be taught anything and cannot learn will always be falling into ditches. Okay, that's the blind leading the blind. So this bait that the enemy will use can be very appealing. The way that the adversary works is he offers you something. Okay, so he's going to offer some things, and you need to pay attention. The bait can be very appealing to the person. It can even seem harmless, okay, and beneficial at the point and time. And so think the garden, right? It seemed like a small thing, but it was huge. The enemy is known to disguise himself as an angel or a messenger of light, and that is how they deceive people into giving them access into their lives. And so again, this is a very dangerous practice, and this is why we must be sensitive by the Ruach HaKodesh. We have to go before our Elohim and check everything, right? We're supposed to test the spirits, right? So those of you that have been doing that quietly, I know you send me notes and you send me things because you test spirits and you're very accurate. You're very accurate. And so I want to encourage you, because some of you have picked up things along the way, and you write and you say, I don't mean to be, whatever, but I want to share this, and I see some things, and you write over the target. You're learning. And so for 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 14, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. And so I feel it's important, to understand how the enemy works in order for you to know his devices. And you should not be ignorant of the devil's devices. All right, so it doesn't mean you have to study Satanism. It doesn't mean you have to study the devil all the time, but you shouldn't be ignorant, right? So I think of it like the way I grew up in New York. Even though I didn't want to be what I was seeing, I had to know what was out there so I could navigate it. I had to understand the gangs. I had to understand the territories. I had to understand where I was. All right, I had to always be aware of my surroundings. This was all training for me. This was all very intense training, and he took me through that, and I came out the other side understanding different atmospheres. And so this is very important that we learn that. And the thing that I found with unclean spirits is that they almost always offer some kind of sweet reward, so be careful to get a person to grant them access to their life. It can be forbidden sexual pleasure. So that's one of the key ones, that the enemy loves to use sex as a demonic connect. So this is a very easy one that he can get people to fall victim of. Supernatural power or knowledge of some kind is another one. So many people fall victim to this one, especially now. In this end of the age, there seems to be almost a voracious appetite for occult knowledge and things like that, fortune telling. Any kind of divination or fortune telling opens the doors for demonic influence. Even healing through occult powers, and so there are those that are seeking that, right? They're not seeking first the kingdom, so they're just seeking the power, not the kingdom, right? So there's the problem. If you're seeking the power and not the kingdom, you're going around Messiah. Anytime you try to go around Messiah, you're going to get in big trouble. Okay? Physical defense, so martial arts is another one. Yahushua made it clear that evil thoughts can defile us and make us vulnerable to spiritual infection. In Matthew chapter 15 and verse 19 and 20, for out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemy. These are things which defile a man. So this is what brings in defilement, and these are things that come out of a man. So evil thoughts are included, and that is where we have to be careful that we don't even allow ourselves to think certain things. I mean, if you start going down a road and started opening the door, like let's say you're married and somebody is dropping seeds of infidelity, you can't even allow yourself to think like that. If you do, you may be tempted to go down that road, right? And so just think like that. So it's seed dropping, right? Just dropping a seed. That's what the devil did. I just had a question. Why are you getting defensive? I just have a question. Hath Elohim really said? Be very careful with that. Sometimes people are asking questions to trap you, as the Pharisees did. They're not actually looking for knowledge. They're trying to trick you and trying to debate with you and to get you into confusion, which is another place that the adversary really enjoys. And so we yield ourselves, whether it be our thoughts, actions, and so forth, to the enemy. If we do that, we're giving him access to our mind and our emotions. And here's just some of the more popular things. And again, I'm going to be going over more detail in the next few broadcasts, if you will. I don't know how many I'm going to end up doing, but as he leads me, I will deal with them. And I'm doing this by the Ruach. I'm doing this as he's put it on my spirit. And so again, today, to have the incident today where snake kills the snake killer chickens, which is before they could grow up and kill them. To me, that's prophetic. It's like, watch this. We have to grow these babies strong so they can deal with your enemy. But until they're there, you have to protect them from the enemy. And this was the message that I got today. So let's talk about some of the spirits and some of the ways in which you can open those demonic doors. And I pray this broadcast is a blessing to you. And if it is, please like and please share it. It helps us in the YouTube algorithms and so forth, and wherever you're seeing this, because sometimes you're welcome to do this. You're welcome to take the broadcast, put it on your own channel. That's okay. We're not mad at you. You go right ahead. You don't even have to tell anybody where you got it. If you don't want to, that's okay. You go right ahead. We're happy to share the material, the information. So first of all, one of the things that you can see right there in Isaiah chapter 1, if you're willing and obedient, you eat the good of the land, but if you refuse and rebel. Okay, so this is the first one I want to talk about. This is a Luciferian thing. You're going to meet very stubborn people with cognitive dissonance, these spirits do not listen. All right, these spirits have nobody else but themselves at the top of it. These are spirits of rebellion. When you see this, you're watching a spirit of rebellion. If you see it in a human being, you need to pray for that human being. Remember, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness in high places, right? Spiritual wickedness in high places. And so we need to come against those things and fight for our brethren. We don't throw people under any buses. What we do is we discern spirits, and then we go to war against those spirits. Everybody with me? Okay? Because this is a spiritual house. And this stuff, the house that knows how to fight. So if we start picking up, hey, something's trying to get on my brother, we don't go yell at the brother. That's not how this works. All right? We may do situations where we detect based on interactions, like ask a question or see where they're at on something, and then, whoa, watch a reaction. Then you know, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. But you got to remember that you're dealing in the spirit, right? So you're not dealing with the natural. So spirits of rebellion, that's the first one I want to deal with, because it's it's getting real bad out there. This spirit seems to take a person's side and whisper to them, I will stand for you. I will stand up for your rights. The spirit is looking for the person to say, yeah, I need that. And next thing you know, they're off on their own. And again, these spirits will speak to people. They will speak to you emotionally. This is where they get let in, and they get let into your emotions. And the next thing you know, a person is being led by their emotions, not by sound doctrine, right? Sound doctrine doesn't care about your emotions. Sound doctrine says to do something, it doesn't matter how you feel. If you feel like it, that's what sound doctrine is, right? Sound doctrine is oblivious to your feelings. Right? Whereas these spirits literally put your feelings on pedestals. Okay? Be very careful with that. So this is the, I think, one of the ones that you really detect Lucifer here in rebellion. Okay? And this is done in many ways. Strife and division is his master key. Where there's envy and strife, there is confusion. So cold separation. Cold separation. That's what the devil brings. So if you see cold, indifferent disconnection, that's called confusion. Just so you know, so you can know what you're looking at spiritually. That's exactly the result that happens. So whenever you see that, you can just back up and say, oh, there must be envy and strife. Why? Because that's what produces confusion. right? That's where it comes from. So all I have to do, once you're a good, spiritual scientist, right, you're good at this. You're starting to learn, oh, this is a pattern. I get this. You start to discern how it came in. So whenever you see confusion, back up and look for the strife and the envy. It's a guarantee you're going to find it. Okay, and envy is a big one. So you got to be really careful with that, because people do envy one another, and that opens a door for demonic spirits big time. So if you find yourself envious of somebody else, this is a violation of the 10th commandment, to covet that which belongs to another man. And instead, what is wiser is for you to get your own, right? So be inspired by others, be encouraged by others, but never envy. Never envy them. That is not good. Another area where we're going to see this, and again, this is where a lot of people didn't realize they opened doors, but they did, and this is a big one. It's called spirits of divination or fortune-telling spirits. The spirit offers the person supernatural secrets. This one is huge, all right? This is one that gets a lot of people under the influence of demonic spirits, and it's almost impossible to get them out of there, because they actually believe in their super specialness, and they bought the secrets. They're being super flattered by these spirits. Okay, so flattery is another telltale sign, by the way. Super flattered by these spirits, and that you're going to get secrets of the future that others, of course, don't have access to, and the person begins to seek that sort of power. And as soon as that person takes the bait and says, okay, and takes the bait, that's it, they're hooked right there. It's not 5 years later they're hooked. It's not 10 years. It's that moment they're hooked. Right then, hook is in the mouth. The moment they said yes, the moment they opened the book, not 5 chapters in. There are some books that if you just open them, you're already needing deliverance. You already need to run to someone who knows how to lay hands on you and humble yourself to get free. And if you don't, your pride will kick in. The spirits are excellent at cultivating pride. Unbelievable levels of pride. And they are exceptional at this work. So they make the vessel very proud. Because, of course, they have special knowledge, right? They have special insight. And these are spirits of divination. Be very careful with that. If a person begins to seek that, again, they open the door. And that's why, when people start talking about, corner-cutting things like certain movies or shows or books or whatever that they let their kids have, they don't know that they're letting occult powers affect their child. And we all have to continue to learn about this, and we all have to continue to be wary about it, and instruct our children, and expose the deeds of dark, expose it right on the screen, pause the movie and say, look, you see that? That's demonic. I believe we have to keep exposing it. I've seen awful things happen to children who have been involved in witchcraft movies and witchcraft things, and next thing you know, they've got poltergeists. And those of you that have followed us again for a long time, for a while, you know that I shared a story in the 1999 Prepare for the Coming Persecution, where someone came to our office and they had literal doors closing and poltergeist activity. This is the thing you're going to see this coming fall. You're going to start to get reports. You are going to start, you believers, because you're the Bible they read. You're the only Bible they know. You're the only saint they know, right? So you're the epistle they've read, and they're going to be coming to you. Looking for help and looking for answers. And you can't just come running to me. That's not how this is going to work. Or to anybody else. You have to be a vessel of honor prepared right there in that situation where you are, to lay hands on and cast that demon out, and then minister the truth where that devil had come in and lied to that person. Minister truth in there so that devil can't come back. Because if he can come back, he's going to make that person worse than they found them. Okay, so if you find some people that are affected by witchcraft spirits, trying to have power over other people, if you even see that mannerism where you see somebody trying to do that, like as if they had power, like imagining themselves as having power, you need to rebuke that, because that's an attempt. You're telling the spirit realm, I'm open to this. I'm open to this. And this is something that comes as a result of wanting vengeance. So this happens a lot to people that have been hurt, traumatized. We're going to get into this again. We're going to talk about how these doorways work. I think you're going to be very blessed by some of this information, and you're going to see why the devil systematically abused you all, and why he did certain things in front of you and did things to you. It was literally to cause breaches that he could get in. All right. So spirits of divination, be very careful here. The spirit offers the person supernatural secrets into the future that others do not have access to. And if the person begins to seek that sort of power, they are letting demons know that they are welcome. This is, a big, big deal. All right. Automatic writing is another type of that. And these spirits offer beautiful, out of this world things. And little do they know that they're being used by spirit to write. And so this is another way that can come in, and here you're giving over actual physical control. So it seems like a small thing. You think you're only giving over your hand, or you're giving over a little bit, and that's just where they grab you. The rest is, just try to disconnect and you'll see what happens. As soon as you try to disconnect, you're going to find the real nature of that spirit. That's when you're going to find out. When you're realizing, oh my goodness, what have I let in, and you try to cast it out, not going to be nice anymore. So they're going to go from complimentary and nice to dominating you. That's how that works. So they get in through the compliments, they get in with the flattery, they get in with the nonsense, and then they flip it on you, right? Another one, a doorway, and again, this was huge. In the 1980s, there was a book out called The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. I've mentioned this many times. It was written by Constance Cumby. I think it was one of the best books I'd ever read on the subject of the New Age, and how the New Age was going to be a huge demonic doorway. And that has been pushed super hardcore. We've got everything from energy healing along with better mental and physical health that are offered. Again, remember, there always has to be an offer and an acceptance. Okay, that's how contract law works. There has to be an offer and an acceptance. So in the garden, there had to be an offer that they would have knowledge, supernatural secret knowledge if they just did it, and they accepted the offer. Transaction was complete. Okay, and from that moment forward, their legal status changed. Right. The same happens when you open the door for New Age spirits. Again, a person partakes in things like yoga, which are actual poses of worship. There are also poses of doing harm to another human being, right? So learning how to kill, which is a violation of the commandment. And so this is, one of those things that you have to be careful with, right? And so many people are waking up to the New Age and realizing that some of these things are, and we're going to get into this in depth because it's really coming into the assemblies, right? So we're going to get into this more. But I just want to touch on this today and just kind of go over this list a little bit, kind of laying a foundation for future discussions. And that includes spirits of any kind of martial arts. This person is offered an out-of-this-world, means of defending, right? So that's what happens. They're enticed by this notion of being able to inflict harm and draw on some secret powers and things like that, and little do they know they're being sucked right into a world and begin to seek that power. The moment you say yes to that power, that devil has now got access, and so they start to bring it. And you'll see people break a board, and if you slow down the video, you'll see that board's already breaking a fraction of a millisecond before they actually touch it, and that's being done by a spirit. So they're giving them over some power to pull them in, and then that person, of course, later on has new problems in their life. And again, this is how we discern this, because when you start ministering to people and going, where did this come from? You're a believer in Messiah. How did this even get in? What happened here? And you start looking for what? Demonic doorways. How they got access, right? How did they get in? Another one is the spirit of lust or perversion. And so this was one we've seen very often. And they go together. So perversion and lust are the same. And you see it in the case of Balaam, whose way, Yahuwah said, was perverse before him. He lusted, and he wanted to be rewarded. He was hoping that Yahuwah would turn around and hoping he could run. When he said, if they call you, you can go, he went before they even called him. That's when the angel stood in the way, right? So there was a perverting. He was perverse. He wasn't one who would do exactly what Yahuwah said. He wanted to do his own thing. And the spirit of lust is a seriously dangerous one. A person is enticed into a world of forbidden pleasures. So this is a person pursuing pleasures. And this is very dangerous, and it happens, leads into some other things that we're going to talk about here in a moment. But this is one of those areas. So those that make pleasure a priority above Elohim especially, can find themselves right in a whole room full of demons real easy. And if that person begins to seek such pleasure, they're letting the spirit realm know. Remember, everything you do is a signal either to one side or the other, right? So you're signaling that to the spirit realm that it's okay to feed you more pleasure in that area of your life. So be careful. Once a person has that spirit and they're acting out that lust, that sexual perversion, it becomes nearly impossible to deal with that at that point. Like they got to run their course because, and they're impossible. I found that until they're done with it, you can't rebuke them, you can't correct them. You got to wait for them to be done, like run their course. This is very dangerous, especially now, because the king is coming, and do you want to be caught in the middle of that? And that's exactly what the adversary wants to do. That leads right in, by the way, lust and pleasure leads right into a spirit of addiction. So again, when the pleasure center, when the dopamine centers of the mind, when pleasure is a big deal, when everything is about pleasure and about feeling good and all of that, then spirits of addiction are standing right there. And so many of you may have found, and if you can just use this as a checklist, right? And you can say, wow, I may have one or two of these. If you have any of these, you need deliverance. Now, it's not a bad. It doesn't mean, that you can't be free. It just means you need to be aware. It's the point of a good checklist, is so that we can say, wow, that is a doorway. And if we put a little box in each one of these, and you're like going to the doctor, you go, do I have any, have I ever had any of these symptoms? And you check a couple of them. Well, now you're letting that person know, you as a recipient of that information goes, wow, I didn't even know that. Now I know I need some ministry. And for the minister, for those of you who are ministering to people, if they check the box, if they say, yeah, this is an area, now you know how to deal with that spirit. So like I said, you need a bit of a crash course here, because you're going to be dealing with some people and you're not going to know right up front where this door got in. And it is not as easy as it looks to find that and then shut it. And again, you can cast the devil out, but if you don't know how it got in, if you don't know its access point, it will only come back with more. And so you have to shut the access point. You can't just cast out the devil. Okay, you have to close out all access points, and you have to reveal it. So spirits of addiction are very, very dangerous. When a person turns to escapism, it can open them up to addiction, which grows into a bondage, where spirits of addiction are involved, and it seems nearly impossible to break free. You have to be able to put things down. I don't care what it is. Okay, and I know there's a lot of people that they have traded one bad habit for a new habit, and we have to be able to put anything down that may in any way offend or come in between us and Elohim, right? So if we've moved in, if anybody moves into substance abuse, what do they call the store you go to get liquor? It's called wine and spirits. There's a reason why they call it wine and spirits. Okay, so alcohol is a huge way in which the enemy uses to lower defenses and then bring in that which is not supposed to be in the body. The Bible is very clear about strong drink, right? So again, people do this all the time. A big percentage of the population has strong drink in their body on a regular basis. So again, this is a big deal. Addiction is involved. It's nearly impossible to break free because of the pleasure centers, because of the way in which the mind works. So once a person reaches a certain age and they're still struggling, like you see people and you're like, you're at this age, but you're still behaving as if you're just out of high school or something. Like we've all seen people that are struggling like that. It means that's most likely when the demonic actually got in. So they have massive maturity issues. This is huge, and I've dealt with this so many people, it's not even funny at this point. Massive maturity issues will come in because of these demons. They literally keep you in a certain spot, and they have to in order for the bondage to work. Like they can't let you progress. If you grow up, you outgrow them. So they'll keep a person acting. You'll see a person that is well advanced in years acting like they're a teenager or a young person, and not in a good way. If you're discerning what I'm talking about. And so that comes from the spirits of addiction, believe it or not. That's keeping the supply. So they have to stay in a certain motif. They have to stay in a certain flow in order for that to keep going. And that's why it's difficult to break, because the shakeup that has to happen in that person's life is usually pretty dramatic. That's why people go out to remote places for treatment centers, right? Because they need an extreme remedy to an extreme problem. So you start adding in demonic spirits, and we've now entered another realm, because it's not just a physical substance. Now you're dealing with an emotional need that a person is getting, and they're getting ministered to by that spirit in a way. So they're being consoled by that spirit. And this makes it really hard to take this thing away, because it's like a nookie, man. They don't want to let go of their nookie. They want to hold on to that pacifier, and that's exactly what the demonic wants to become. They want to become something you depend on. Okay, I want to tell you a little quickly about the spirits behind cancer, and this is one of those things that I personally have a thing with. I'm very grateful for all the advances that have been made to, in the physical sense, deal with cancer and deal with cancer cells in the human body and things like that. So for all of those that are doing great work in that area, advancing medical research and advancing work to help the physical body recover from cancer, I'm super excited about that. I'm very grateful, and I believe it is a fulfillment of prophetic word. However, we have to remember that we are spirit beings, right? And we live in a spiritual world, and so many of these things are actually a manifestation of the spirit realm. And these spirits behind cancer will offer a person pleasurable, a thing that you may not think is very pleasurable, but it is a vengeance spirit. They will pay, and that feeling comes from bitterness and unforgiveness. And so, if we're honest, and you can see that it actually feels good to hold a grudge. Sometimes it almost has some pleasure to it, because you're mentally beating up that other person and you're planning their demise, and you can really get too far in that, and that is where the adversary gets in, and so it will block Elohim's forgiveness for your own sins, according to Matthew 6:15. So if you start to bear a grudge, which is a direct violation of the Torah, you're not allowed to hold anything past sundown, then you violated the Torah. You certainly cannot bring a gift having aught against your brother. And so this is one of the areas, saints, where the adversary gets a massive, wide open door, and he brings in cancer. That's what comes with it. Bitterness and unforgiveness is directly tied to cancer. And when a person turns bitter, it invites an evil spirit into their system, which will aggravate the cells in the body, okay, and which will cause abnormal growths. So be careful with unforgiveness. And that doesn't mean everybody that has any cancer is dealing with that. But what we want to do is we want to look for demonic doorways. And again, if that is a doorway, if you find someone who has cancer and also happens to be very bitter or angry or unforgiving toward anyone, hello, we're over the target, right? Okay, so we can then minister with wisdom and say, all right, now I know what I'm dealing with, and here's where I'm going to spend a little extra time now, because I can see this is what you need. Okay. Another one that you need to be very careful with, and this is another trade-off of spirit. This is when these spirits come to trade with you. They are going to basically take your eternal freedom, and they're going to trade you a little bit of temporal power. And that is what witchcraft and warlock and mystics and shaman and any other kind of spiritual power aggregators, people that are pursuing that, they open the door to this. And these spirits offer supernatural power to get even. Again, vengeance, right? So be very careful with this. This is all about getting even. A lot of times people who are abused, especially as children, the adversary set you up as a child. So by doing certain things to you as a child, knowing full well that by the time you grew up, you'd be so angry and so wanting vengeance against certain things that you would go around being a terror. There's some people that don't even see these spirits operating through them, and they can't sit still anywhere, and they do harm wherever they go, and because of these spirits in them. And it came from when they were young and they were abused, and now they have a get even thing to any offended person, and they accumulate them, by the way. So this is, these are people that will threaten you right away, and they'll even use the name of Yahuwah and take it in vain, as if they have power over him and can use him as a weapon against you. So be very careful with any kind of witchcraft and any kind of warlockism. This can be very appealing to somebody who has been rejected or hurt in the world. This is where they pick up a lot of their, victims. When a person begins placing curses or seeks to learn about witchcraft or Kabbalah, same thing. Or even seeks to have a witch place a curse for them, right? This lets spirits know that they are welcoming this into that person's life. Elohim's word tells us not to even seek someone with occult power. You shouldn't even look for them, right? Lest we become defiled ourselves. And again, these don't always operate outside of the household of faith. Many times these are operating within, under the color of being saints. This is the way the devil masquerades as an angel of light, right? So, looking for witches with pointy hats and warlocks that look like Gandalf the Grey, you're going to miss them, right? But when you see them for what they are, then you're going to see how they operate. And so he specifically tells us in the Torah, Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 31, regard not them that have familiar spirits. So what is that? A familiar spirit. And this is what a lot of people have led into their lives through the New Age with spirit guides. So they say, I have a spirit guide or a friend in the spirit, right? Oh, this spirit that comes to me, it's a familiar spirit. And it's familiar with your family. And it's probably been following the family, right? So this is where a lot of things come in. So those that have familiar spirits need to seek after wizards. And we're gonna go into this a little bit at another time, but I just want to touch it. And be defiled by them. So these, if you receive and accept them and revere them, will defile you. Okay, that's what they leave behind them. They leave behind defilement wherever they go. So if you just look at a trail behind a person, or a group of people even, but if you detect that there's a spirit operating in someone, look behind them and see if they've left a trail of defilement. And if that's true, then now you're over the target. Now you're able to discern a little bit better, and you can say, okay, now I know how to intercede for this person. And again, remember, we're always trying to rescue. We're never trying to condemn. He did not send his son or any of his sons into the world to condemn the world. But he sent his sons into the world, right? So he sent us all into the world. Why? So that the world would be saved. We follow after our Mashiach. He came so they would be saved. We come so they will be saved. Same motive, same message, same kingdom, same gospel. He's king. Bow down. Get clean. Get these things out of your life, right? Resist the devil and he's going to flee. So you got to resist these things. You can't welcome them in. You can't welcome in a spirit that says, I'm going to make you super smart. I'm going to give you super deep secrets. I'm going to share with you the deep secrets of the world. You need to cast that thing out. You need to cast that thing out, okay? And understand, occult spirits are another one. They're the lure of supernatural power and knowledge of the unknown. And this is another area where people get super hung up. And this is an ego puffing thing. So when this spirit comes in, it's always flattering. Always flattering. And puffs that person up to the moon, okay? And it's really, really scary when this happens, because then you really cannot talk to these people. When a spirit like this gets in there, you have to wait for them to really cry out. You have to wait for something to happen in their life where they realize, I have a demon. Like, it's really hard for occult spirits to come out because they invited him in. They invited him in seeking after knowledge that they had no business seeking after. And they thought they were going to, learn some good stuff, and then they ended up finding themselves surrounded by these spirits. So occult power and knowledge, and they're making themselves available to those spirits again when you go pursuing things. So if you go cracking open books thinking it's innocent, no, it's not. All right, especially if they're forbidden. If this is knowledge that's forbidden. This is what the fallen did, the Nephilim. They brought forbidden knowledge, and they put it in stone tablets, which you should have left and destroyed, but instead they saved them, and then they read them and do what the stone tablets say, which is exactly what's described in the 8th chapter of the book of Jubilees, which brought the same practices that caused the whole world to be filled with violence before the flood. So you see, we got to be careful with the things we think are super cool because they're occult, they're hidden. That's how the adversary works, just saying. We're children of light. We expose, we bring things into the light. Amen. Another one is spirits of bondage. A person may think it's best to make a vow, and they made a lot of vows and commitments that were not of Elohim. And rash vows can be forgiven. In Leviticus chapter 5, verses 4 through 11, you see a process for forgiving and canceling or taking back a vow. And it has to be done in a certain amount of time. So once you've done that, and if you've made yourself a commitment to do something evil, right, to do something you shouldn't, and you now realize, wow, I should not have committed to doing that, you have to repent for that. You have to cancel it, or it's going to drag you in, right? So you may not realize that, and this is how these spirits of bondage will hold a person. But you promised, and this is why you need that out. You need to be able to say, no, I didn't realize where that was going. I didn't realize where you were headed. I didn't realize what was happening here, and I'm out, right? You've got to be able to break those bondages, and that's what the adversary loves. He loves to put you in a situation where you feel like you don't have a choice. You always have a choice, all right? And another one that I really want to point out here, and I'm coming to an end here, and this is spirits of self-pity. Remember, I told you a lot of these spirits, one of the ways in which they find into your life is to make you feel that they're the only ones that feel sorry for you. They understand your pain. They understand the pain they caused, by the way. So they set you up. They cause pain back here, and then they come along later on. Oh, poor baby, right? So really be careful with spirits of self-pity. This is a big one. This is where the adversary loves to take people, right? The spirit whispers to the person, you poor thing. You deserve much better than that. And they start puffing the ego. And they cause all kinds of damage as a result. So that person, once you become self-pity, you're imploding. You're now focused, all your pity is on yourself. If you pity the poor, that's different. That's someone outside you. When you pity yourself, you're turning a gift that was meant to be for others and turning it toward yourself. So this is a very subtle trick, and it works with those that are hurt, those that have been abused, those that have been damaged in some way, maybe very traumatically abused. And again, the more traumatic the abuse, the better this kind of stuff works. Just saying. So if you were one of those people that had serious trauma as a young person, maybe you were one of those people that were abused as a young person, this was the devil's attempt to destroy your life long term, not just at that moment. And that's how you get your victory, is to go back to that moment, forgive that sin, cleanse that moment with forgiveness, and don't allow the adversary to traumatize you anymore. Because it's the trauma that they use emotionally to talk you into the doctrine of devils. That's just how it works. And when a person agrees with such thinking, so as soon as they start agreeing with the thinking, remember, it's before they even do the acting, they did the thinking. So before Eve reached out and grabbed that fruit, she had to agree with the devil. She had to start listening to the reasoning. This is why you want to shut them down. Don't let them keep talking. Okay? Because they're very good at this. They're very good at talking you into using your emotions. All right, so this is when a person agrees with such thinking. They're going to get hit in their emotions, and after all, it will feel good when somebody agrees with that person's pity party. All right, so this is really dangerous, and the list goes on. These are just a few of the ways that demons can make themselves appealing to a person's fleshly desires. They can start to come in. And when we leave the word of Elohim behind and seek to satisfy our own appetites or our flesh, well, it gives an unclean spirit access. That's reality, right? So over the next season, you're going to need a bit of a crash course, because we're coming in to a time period where I believe the adversary is going to come in like a flood. And so because of the level of demonic activity that will be erupting across the earth as we approach the fall feast coming up, again, this is a 7-year anniversary from the blowing of the shofar. And how many know they don't want to give you your Jubilee? They don't want to give you that Jubilee. They're going to have to, but they don't want to. Okay, so they're going to be angry. There's some angry spirits, all right, very angry as we approach the fall feast. And so as these fall feasts approach, we're gonna see more manifestations. We're gonna see more things that happen, and then through that time period, I believe you're gonna see dramatic things. In Isaiah 59 and verse 19, so shall they fear the name of Yahuwah. How will they fear the name of Yahuwah? From the west, and from His glory from the rising of the sun. How will this happen? So shall they fear Yahuwah, the name of Yahuwah, right? So here it is: when the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Ruach of Yahuwah shall lift up a standard against him. And so you are the standard bearer, right? You're carrying the name, right? You have his name upon you. You walk in his ways. You keep his commandments. And so you are the remedy to what the adversary is going to try and do. You are the standard he is raising. He is raising you up in his word, in his righteousness, so that all these wiles of the devil do not deceive you anymore. And do not think that these spirits are not real. Do not take for granted what I'm sharing with you and will be sharing over the next few broadcasts on this topic, because these spirits are very real. They are very angry spirits that do not like to be argued with, and they do not like to be called out. But that's exactly what you're going to have to do. And that's why they come out so nasty. When they get cast out, it's not polite. It's not nice. And so what we're going to be talking about is not only how to detect these things, but then how to confront. I've learned many lessons in confrontations, knowing when it's time to cast the devil out and when that person's not ready. And those that have invited in spirits, even if they are aware that it's an evil spirit, they may not be ready to let go. I remember one man who was spoken to by a spirit that I knew was a familiar spirit. And the spirit said, "What if you found out that I was actually the devil? Would you still love me?" This is the question the spirit asked the person. Right? And so these are the kinds of slow ways in which they entrap. And I mean, these spirits did horrific damage to this poor saint. And so understand that there are wicked spirits out there who only want to twist you just enough to get you off. They don't have to twist you a lot. They just need to twist you a little bit. And that's what they do. And it's for their own benefit. And this is one of the ways that you know that you have been taken over or are being influenced by a demonic spirit, is that you may find yourself apologizing a lot for things that you look back and go, well, how did I even talk myself into that? How did I even do that? What would make me even think that was okay? These are indicators that your emotions are being taken over at certain intervals in certain places. And again, we're commanded by the scripture. According to the scripture, we're commanded, Mashiach says, in your patience, possess ye your souls. And so this is what we are meant to walk in control of our emotions by the Ruach HaKodesh. This is one of the fruit of the Spirit, is self-control. Amen. And so when you see those spirits driving a person who's out of control, then you know that there's familiar or demonic spirits involved. And so I just want to encourage you in this hour to not take this lightly, to begin to pray and get prepped. We're going to talk about this a bit as we head up to the fall feast. And so if you've been wondering, wow, we need some additional, somebody wrote to me and said, we need some additional teaching on deliverance. And I said, that's coincidental. And just got that note today. And I said, it's coincidental because he's been putting it on my spirit to get ready for these fall feasts by preparing you, my brethren, to confront evil and deal with demonic spirits. So right now, we just want to ask him to show any demonic doorways that have been opened. And I'm just going to pray a prayer to close here. And if you may not even think you have any, you may not know whether you do or don't. This is not meant to condemn anyone. Remember, we're all victims of this demonic betrayal that happened. We are all of us, all human beings. If you're a human being on the earth, if you're a man or a woman on the earth, or child, you're a victim of this fall, right? And so Yahuwah is giving you a way of escape by making you aware of it, so you know you're behind enemy lines, if you will, and then you can start to open your eyes. Father, I pray for every one of these who hear this broadcast. I pray that you would deliver them from their own destruction, to send them your word. Help them to begin to see how they may have opened doors to the evil that is in their life today. And I pray, Father, that you would not only cause a full exposure of these demonic things, but that you would also replace that which was evil, what was spoken to that person, these evil thoughts and twisted thoughts, and instead replace it with the truth. And I thank you, Father, that you minister your truth that sets them free. In Messiah's holy name, amen and amen. Well, that's it today. I just wanted to share this today, and I'm so glad for every one of you that, again, like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, and share this in even your channels or your social media or wherever, and encourage others to come on over and we'll sit together. You don't have to be a member of our house for us to minister this to you. This is just our way of serving you, the greater body of Messiah, and trying our best to help before these days arrive. Because if you're already seeing demonic manifestations increasing, if you've already begun to see that and begun to discern, wait a minute, something's wrong here, something is spiritually happening here, and you're picking up these things, I believe the Ruach HaKodesh is awakening his people to the supernatural in a new level, and I believe we need to be a people that are prepared to do war, amen, to wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers that will try to hold our brethren. For against these snakes that would try to come in and steal, kill, and destroy. These snakes that would come in and try to destroy the babies before they've even had a chance to grow up. And so, saints, this is why it's so important that we stop all of these spirits in their tracks by the Ruach HaKodesh. Amen. So we need to speak the truth, but speak it in love. And that is why we have to do these kinds of things. And so thank you for joining us. Thank you for every one of you who support this house and stand with us. May Yahuwah bless each and every one of you. And remember, Yahushua HaMashiach, he alone is King of Kings, and it's reigning. Amen.